Hello again, everybody, and welcome back. I hope you guys had another good week. So we are on to our first major assignment of this semester. We are designing an object this week. So we're starting off simple. You're just designing one object. It could be a weapon. It could be some sort of talisman. It could be really anything as long as it's an inanimate object. So this is our first major assignment. I want to remind you that it is worth more to your grade. The minor assignments of this semester are worth 60% of your grade. And then we have 3 major assignments of this semester are worth 40% of your grade. So just 3 assignments are worth 40%. So you will notice a big difference in your grade this week, depending on how you do. Just remember that's because you only have 1 major assignment this week. And if you did really bad or didn't hand it in, basically if you have a 0 for this week, it may quickly bring your grade down. Or vice versa, it could quickly bring your grade up if you get, a really high grade on this and your grade was low before. But remember that will average out over the semester. So I don't want you to be get freaked out if your grade jumps drastically in a way you're not happy with. But once again, remember, if you are behind, you can catch up, you can hand in stuff late, you can resubmit. That's what these critiques are for me to tell you what is wrong with your assignments and tell you how to fix them and how to get a better grade. That is the whole purpose of these critiques. And then in particular for this week, this week is all about letting you know how you're doing so far in this project. Making sure you're understanding the directions, following everything that's laid out for you. I know it's a lot of steps. But in particular, I want to make sure that you're on the right page and you're doing, at a good spot here. So that when, you get to the final part of this assignment, I want you to feel like, you've done the proper work. And I don't want to tell you you need to redo things now that you finish the whole project. Anyway, so that's where we are. This is just a way to let you know how you're doing so far. So I'm not going to be posting a grade today. You will notice, I'm not going to be posting a grade on Blackboard. I will only post a grade at the end of the assignment when you have it all complete. But just know you are obviously being graded on all these steps. For grading purposes, there are a lot of steps to this. Basically, everything's worth about 10 points. Your references are worth 10 points, stories worth 10 points, studies are 10 points, concepts 10 points, orthos are 10, and then perspective, the final perspective drawing is worth 20 points. And then, as always, making sure you hand in the Photoshops and the JPEGs. You guys will lose points if you're not handing in both, and some of you did not hand in both this week. So make sure you hand in both before the end. And then, of course, file naming and all that stuff as usual. So let us get into this. Is there anything else I want to mention before we get into this? I don't think so. So you should notice you didn't get any new videos this week. You have all the videos all ready for this assignment. It's just a matter of getting through it, in time for when it's due. Okay, so let us do this. I think you guys are in a good spot. A few of you are a little bit behind here, but you can catch up. I just want to let you guys know that. Okay, so this time we're going to start from the middle and work our way up. I did want to mention for the references, it is important that you guys hand in a folder for the references with the images in them. And I am going to be looking at the quality of your references that you guys, get. If you just have 10 pictures and they're not very good inspirational pictures, you're not going to get full credit on that. So I wanted to know that you really are doing your research. It's always beneficial to hand in more. Even if I say, minimum 10 for references, you should have a lot more. I always have a lot more. Even if you are only using 10 of them, I want to know you've done your research. So that's what I'm kind of looking for the references stage. And then for the concept stage, I said 5 to 10. So a few you did a few extra, which is good. I did give you a little extra credit if you did do more than just the basic 5. So I do appreciate seeing the extra work from you guys. Okay, so let's get into this. Let's start in the middle and work our way down. We're going to start with Christopher. Okay, so let's see your references. So your references are a little boring. I feel like you found, like, this is kind of the example of, like, this are the first 10 images you found. You know, you got 5 or so cowboy hats and 5 or so witch hats, and they're very basic, you know, not very interesting. I mean, yeah, this one's a little interesting. I mean, the others are just like costume hats. So, and these are very basic cowboy hats. They're all pretty much the same. This one and this one are almost exactly the same. Yeah, okay, there's slightly different shapes in them, but yeah, I didn't give you full credit for your references because I don't think you really looked hard for this, which is too bad. I think you gotta do more research. I see where you're going with this with your mixture of your cowboy hat and your witch hat here, but I think you gotta get more interesting references than this. But when we get into this, let's see. When we get into this, you know, I did go through everyone's stories. I'm not going to be opening them now, but I did make sure everyone had them. For yours, so we have your concept sketches and your studies. Let's see, I want these bigger. Your studies here, you did a good job. You know, you were able to duplicate what you were seeing here. Although I did ask for light shading and you didn't do any shading on these, so you didn't get full credit for this as well. But, you know, otherwise they're decent studies. Where I do have a problem, though, this week is with your concepts. Because your concepts is literally just your studies. Like, this first one here is just this first study you did. And then you just erase the top and put a different hat on it. You literally took your studies and just erased part of them and then redrew on top of that, which doesn't really count, unfortunately. You know, there's really nice shortcuts you can have with doing digital work here, things like that, where you can, you know, take a drawing and just edit it. But that's not what we're looking for in this class here. You know, even like this one here. This one you just took, you know, the bottom of this hat, which is this drawing here, I think, and then just erase the top and add a different top to it. I did talk about kind of, you know, mixing and matching things together, but I don't think you pushed it far enough, and I don't think these hats are interesting enough. You know, how does this hat work? What is it made of? Have you thought about those things? I think these are really not that interesting. I'm not giving you full credit because you just took a drawing that you did previously, your studies, and then, you know, redrew on top of it, which is not what I'm looking for. I want new, fresh drawings. I want you to really be pushing the envelope, and I feel like you just didn't push the envelope really quite enough for this here. So I wish you would go back into this, try a little bit more, do your concepts again, and really try to push that. This is all about being creative, and I feel like you're just not being very creative on this here. So that's my recommendation to get the best grade possible here is I would go back, redo your concepts, try to get something a little bit more interesting. I would actually start first by finding more references of more interesting things, and then come back to this. I bet there's better looking witch hats out there for you to get inspiration from. And try to keep away from these like kind of cartoony drawings here. Unless you're going for a style that's more like a flat cartoony drawing, but even still, I would find better references. They're out there. So that's where I'd say you are now. I would go back to drawing board just a little bit before you go any further. Okay. Moving on. Mahtab, you are in a great spot here this week. I did not get your reference folder. I know you have references, obviously, because I can see them in here, but I wanted to get a folder within, you know, your Dropbox folder that has the references just like in the previous one. So make sure you get that in. Otherwise, you're going to lose 10 points for that. So make sure you just upload that folder. Otherwise, your story is good. You know, once again, I'm not really grading you guys on the quality of your story here, but I am reading through them all. I do enjoy reading your stories. So your story is good here. Your studies are really great. Nice shading on them. Really good attention to detail. I think that's all great. And then your concepts are excellent. Oh, and actually, Christopher, did you hand in your Photoshop file? Oh, you did not hand in your Photoshop file. Sorry, Christopher. Make sure you hand in your Photoshop file, otherwise you will lose points. Sorry. Mahtab, back to you. You did hand in your Photoshop file, which is good. And your concepts are great. You really pushed it here. You did more than the basic. I did give you some extra bonus points because you did go a little bit farther on that. And I love the variety on these. I think they're all really interesting. So I think you're in a great spot here, and I'm really looking forward to where you go with this. I'm not sure which one you feel like fits best with your story here, but I love the variety in this. I think it's really interesting. I think you took this idea of an axe and pushed it, beyond the basic, which is amazing. And you did have some basic ones here, and you went beyond your references, which is what I love. So great work so far. Keep it up. I'm looking forward to see where you go. Just remember to hand in your references. Okay, Nicholas. You are also in a good spot here. I got your references folder. I think your references look good. I think you got some good inspiration here. So nice job on this. As far as this here, your studies are really good. I think you got some nice variety in here. I like that you did do some focus on the whole thing and some focus on some details here, which is great. So I think your studies all look really good. And your concepts are excellent. I love the variety in this. I think you really pushed yourself, and you did more than the bare minimum, so I did give you a little bit of extra credit for it. And I think that these are all super great. They're all really interesting, all really unique. I think, honestly, I think any of these, I think could work for your staff here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see where you go with this. It's kind of whichever you feel like and will best fit your design here. Remember, if you go with any of these ones that are cages, that, remember to keep it down, or when you're drawing it, to simplify it to its basic form. So think of that, whatever it's like a pentagon, whatever type of shape it is. Remember to draw that all out, and even make sure all your bars are evenly spaced when you get into your perspective drawing. So make sure you keep that in mind as you go forward here. But these are all just basic shapes. That's all you're going to be doing on all of these. So I believe you can do that easily. Okay. Otherwise, you're in a great spot here. So good luck. Sydney, I did not get a reference folder from you, so make sure you get that in. That's 10 points to hand in that folder with the references. So make sure you hand that in. I did get your Photoshop file. We did get your studies. Your studies look good. I think you got some nice variety in keys here, some nice different intricate designs. I think your sketches look nice. I would have liked some more shading on them, though. I did mention some light shading. I know you've got these like hatches on here to kind of imply shading, but I wanted some actual little bit of shading on them to see you're really looking and studying the keys a little bit more. But otherwise, these look great. And your concepts look really good. I think you got some nice variety in here. The only real comment I'd have is they're all kind of similar in shape. They look like about the same length and about the same size, kind of head of your key here. There could be a little bit more variety in that. I know this one definitely, this one's a little bit shorter. These probably look like they have a smaller head compared to the size of their body. But, overall, I think these are great. I think you definitely took your inspiration and turned them into intricate, and each are unique in their own way. So I think you're in a great spot here, and I'm looking forward to where you go with this. Okay, next up, Cam. I can't open your JPEG. You can see how this got this little tiny preview. So if I try to open it, it says I can't open it. So that means maybe it's a Photoshop file. Either way, it means you didn't save it out as a JPEG correctly. So you're going to lose 10 points for that because I can't open it. So make sure you get that in. Your references look good. Got a sword here. I think you got nice variety of swords here, which is great. Let's see. You didn't hand in your concept design. Yeah, I know you're behind, but we did hand in your studies, and I think your studies look great. I think you're really paying attention to details on this. Your drawings look really nice, so excellent job on that. And your story looks good. It's simple, but you got it there. I didn't say these have to be complicated stories, but otherwise you're in a great spot here. Okay, moving on. Adam. Oh, I love what you've done here, Adam. So you've got your references. References, I think you could have done a little bit more with. This is a little bit plain. You kind of got the bare minimum here. Some of these are not super exciting. I think there's more interesting spears you could have found out there. So I didn't give you full credit for this. I think you could do a little bit more research and find some more. But despite that, I think you did a great job with your designs here. So your studies are good. They're just really tiny. If we look at them here, they're not filling up the page. And I did say to fill up the page. You could have oriented them better so you could fill them up. Maybe when you're drawing, you're just zoomed in like super tight. But it just makes it hard for me to see, and you're not using your space very well. So you did lose. You did lose a couple points for that. I use that space wisely. Think of this like a piece of paper. That way you can actually get into the details of these, but otherwise they look good. But most of all, your concepts are excellent. I absolutely love what you did here. This is exactly what I am looking for. You definitely pushed yourself on the concepts here. I love that you played with, I saw your note on there. I love that you played with the handle and the blade part and tried different intricate designs on here. Let's actually open this one up because it's worth looking at. Like I want everyone to see this one. This is a really great example of what I'm looking for. You really pushed yourself creatively on all of these. Yeah, you have some nice ones. I really like 6 here is cool. 4 is pretty cool. If you want to go a little bit simpler, I like 1 on here. As far as the handles, ooh, I like this one. I like the kind of like changing patterns on that one for the grip. This is kind of unique and different. And even this one here, that kind of looks more like a stick. I don't know if it'd be really practical. Depends, what fits in your story. Honestly, any of these would be really great here. And this is, I love just that little subtle highlights you have on there, just enough to imply shadow is really what I'm looking for with light shading. So these are excellent. Yeah, this one stands out to me. But if there's one you really like and are really interested in, go ahead and go forward with that. I want you to do one that excites you the most on this because I think you have a lot of really great ideas. I like the ones that have a little bit more texture. That's my kind of personal thing here. Because I think the texture is really what makes things unique and look more lifelike in the long run. So one that's just kind of like a plain, just like a piece of metal, I'm not as interested in, even though you have other details on here that are so great. That's what just stands out for me, that one. But I think any of these are great options here. Yeah, that one does stand out. And this one, and that one. It's hard to pick. You did a great job here. So excellent work. You're in a great spot. Keep it up. Just make sure, where am I? Yeah, you just lost little points. I would still find more references, even though you did a great job of going beyond your references. That's where you lost like a point here, and you lost little points for the size of your sketches on your studies, but that's easily fixable. You could just rearrange that and resubmit. But otherwise, you're in a great spot. Okay, moving on. Nathaniel, nothing. Ian, nothing. Jimmy, you are in a good spot as well. Big problem is, though, I cannot see any of your references. And unfortunately, I do need to see them to be able to give you the credit here. They're all web files. They're not JPEGs. So that's why I can't see them and I can't open them here. So unfortunately, I can't give you credit for these because I can't grade what I can't see. So if you just save them out as JPEGs. You could do screenshots and I'd be perfectly happy with that. I honestly don't care what format these are as long as I can see them. So please, if you could just resubmit that to me, get that in and then you'll be good. Otherwise, your studies are good. I think so. You're doing this type of jewel thing here. I think you found a nice range of shapes. I like that they're not all just like simple shapes here. You did find some more complicated ones. Love you paying attention to the details in the lighting because that's going to be essential when you draw yours. You want to make sure you capture that light to make sure it looks reflective. So that's a really good reference on here. So excellent job on that. And then your concepts, I love that you really pushed it. You know, you could have easily taken these studies that you did and just kept with a very simple jewel shape, but you didn't. You did something way more interesting and unique on all of these. The challenge you're going to have when you get to your perspective illustration is that a lot of these are more organic shapes. You know, they're not like perfect forms. You know, it's not like a perfect cube or a perfect sphere. They're going to be more organic shapes, which makes it a little bit more tricky when doing perspective, but also gives you a little bit more leeway when doing perspective. The key is going to be making sure these look like they're kind of like they're glass or stone of some sort. It looks like you spent a lot of time on these concepts, and I love it. But then right now they just look flat. They don't look three-dimensional, and they don't look like stones because they don't have that reflective quality of this. So I think that's going to be your real challenge here. Just remember when you go to draw it in perspective, keep it to a basic shape. So maybe start it as, you know, start with that cube and figure out how it would fit within that cube type shape, but make sure it looks like it has depth. That's what I really am going to want to see on these. So you did great work. Really spent time on them. I love your designs here. I think they're all really intricate and spent time on them. Your challenge is going to be, I think, when you get to your perspective stage and making sure that looks realistic. But I love what you're doing here. This one looks, there's definitely an implication of that kind of like glassy feel on here that I like in that shading that you did. You know, notice how these like capture light on here. There's some dark areas and the light areas which you are getting on here. Just make sure you don't go black. I think they're rarely ever black. It's just trying to capture that see-throughness. And also notice how like here, let's open. A lot of these they basically have an edge because of the way the light reflects on them. Even this, it's got kind of like a dark edge here, and then it's lighter on the inside where the light's coming through. And sometimes there's like a part that's like not catching light here, but it's the same thing here. It's kind of got like a darker edge around the outside and kind of gets lighter in the middle with a couple of highlights. And those highlights are important. Make sure you get those really good highlights to get that shine. But same thing here. Notice there's kind of that dark edge and then it's lighter on the inside. And I see you're kind of getting that on some of these, but that's what I want you to pay attention to as you're going forward here. And maybe there's some more references that will help you a little bit better. I don't know what if there are more references than just these, but that's what I want you to think about as you're going forward here, because I think you have the right information that you need. So good luck with that. Okay, you're in a good spot though. Jonathan, I did not get anything from you. Okay, let's go down. I did Christopher. Joseph, I did not get anything from you. Cameron, you are behind, but you are catching up. You did hand in a Photoshop file, even though it is empty, but at least you handed in something. I did get your story, and your references are good here. So you're not the only other person who's doing a book this week. I'm going to tell you the same thing that I'm going to tell them when I get to their critique. Make sure you make it interesting because it's a very basic shape. You know, it's just a rectangular box, but make sure you make that cover of this book really interesting. I mean, notice how like the pages of this are interesting. They're not, you know, even like this one here, they're not always like fit perfectly square. I love the details on this that make it more than just a regular book. And some of your inspiration on here is just regular books, but you did have a range, you know, of references here, which is great. And I love that you even looked at scrolls. Like you really were looking outside the box. So references are great. You're in a great spot there. You're just behind. So make sure you catch up. Otherwise, otherwise, I don't know what else to say. Make sure you catch up. You got a good start though. Okay, moving on. Nick. Okay. Oh, so this is the other book one I was just talking about. So Nick, you have the same challenge as that Cameron does too this week, is that you are doing a book, and books are just a very simple shape. You know, it's just a rectangular box. And I think you got to make sure you make this interesting. Make it an interesting looking book. You got some interesting looking books on here, But mostly for your references, this is a plain book. This is a plain book. Okay, there's a little bit of a design on the side of it, but otherwise, plain book. I mean, this is a plain book. This is a plain book. So I didn't give you full credit for your references. You just need to have more interesting references in here. I think you've got about 6 or 7 that I think are interesting and the rest are not. So, or give you 8. So I think I give you credit for 8 of them. And the rest are not. So make sure I would do a little bit more research because I think you could push this a little bit farther. So when we get to your studies, your studies are good. The problem is just some of these are just plain books. There's not a lot for you to learn from them other than this is a rectangle. And so I think, you did a good job with your studies. You did a good job, studying what you see here with a little bit of shading. So you got full credit on these, which is great. Oh, sorry. I take that back. Checking my notes here. I did not give you full credit just because some of these, they're not giving you any benefit, any real help here. So these 3 I didn't quite give you credit for. I want to see more interesting books than this. So I would go back to these again. So you lost a few points just because I think you could have found better references and done better studies. And then when you get to your book, remember the challenge of this is making it look like an interesting book. And it doesn't have to be shaped like a normal book, which it looks like you're doing that here. It looks like you have different shapes. But this one here is just a plain book and it says magic book on the front of it. It's just not interesting. The rest of these are. This one, I don't want to really give you credit for that one here. The rest of them are pretty good. I can see you playing with different designs here, but I also want you to think about different textures, Think about the 3-dimensionality of this book. So remember, it's going to have like these designs on this. I don't know if this is a keyhole or something, make sure it's 3-dimensional. Make sure it stands on top of the book. And that's with some of the things on these that I like on some of your studies, the ones that you had that are good. Like I love how, see how this like key here, the lock on this one, kind of stands out from the book. Some of these have details that are literally like embossed on top of the book. So I want to make sure you get that 3-dimensionality and don't just make it a plain flat book. And make sure whatever your design is that I know these are studies and these don't have to be perfect, so that's fine. But make sure when you get to your final that you really refine these drawings. And, if this is a star, make sure it's an even looking star and not, don't make like a sideways crooked star like this unless, there's some meaning behind it. But I want you to think about those things as you're going forward. Make sure you make this a really interesting and unique book. And remember, it doesn't have to be the normal shape of any normal book. I like that this one's a little bit longer than typical. But I want you to think about that. And I would do a little bit more reference hunting before you go forward here and make sure, you think about the texture of the book, you think about the 3-dimensionality, even think of the pages. Think how the pages, is it like a perfectly clean book where the pages are really straight, or is it like an old book where there's pages sticking out of it and there's bookmarks and stuff like that? So that's what I want you to think about going forward here. I think you have a decent start. You got a pretty good start here, but I think you could push it a little bit more in some spots. So I think you lost a couple points here just for your concepts because I think you could push it a little bit farther. Okay, moving forward. Geo, so I got something from you this week, which is good. I got your story, so I can give you some credit for that, but obviously you are behind, but I'm glad you are catching up here. So get that in as soon as you can. JJ, nothing. Juliana, okay, you are in a great spot here. Your references look great. You're doing a boat here, and I think you got a really nice range of references here. Some modern, some more ancient looking, like really cool stuff here. So that's excellent. You're definitely drawing a bigger object than some people here, but I think this is a great challenge for you. So let's take a look here. So your studies are great. Really paying attention to, the details on these, which I love to see. You got some nice shading. So your studies are absolutely excellent. Really paying attention to the details, which is what I love. And then when we get to your boats, these look good. Just be careful. I know there's some perspective issues on these, which is, I know they're studies. They don't have to be perfect. You'll obviously figure out the perspective when you get to the perspective stage. But what I am seeing here, which I love, is that you are playing with shape on these, even though some of them do have that kind of similar, like, pointed here, flat in the back type shape. You did a good job of varying them, some with sails, some without. I think they're really excellent. And remember, when you get forward to your perspective drawing, remember that it's just, it's just another piece of furniture. It's just like the 2-point perspective room. Think of this like a couch, and it's just evenly shaped. So start with that box that your boat is going to fit in, and remember to use subdivision to break it up, figure out where that center or that point is going to be, everything like that. And I think you're going to be great on this. So you're in a great spot here. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think I have any other comments here. I think you're in a great spot. I'm looking forward to see where this goes. Okay. Meg. Okay, Meg, we're got a good start here. Let's take a look at your references. So you're doing a teapot. I love your teapot reference. I think you got a good variety of shape and then a good variety of like designs on them too. I love that some of these like have texture on them. They're not just simple. Like even that little like, nub right here on the handle is great. This one actually has like raised details on it. Things like that I want you to think about as you go forward here. I mean, really look at the interesting handles on here. Your studies. So your references are all look really good. That's, I think, exactly what I'm looking for references. Your studies look really good. I think you have some attention to detail on these, which is nice. You're really paying attention to that stuff. Some of these things are a little wobbly. They are just studies, but make sure when you get to your finished piece that it looks even all the way around. You don't want it to look like it's kind of tilted or smushed or something like that, because that's where some of these are kind of looking like. But otherwise, I think your studies look really good. And your concepts, I did get your Photoshop file, this is good. Your concepts here, I think are good. I think you could just push it a little bit farther. You definitely are playing with different shapes here, which I love. There's different handles on these, different spouts. That's everything I love. I think what's gonna like make this design is the details on it. Because this one has, that texture on it, but the other ones here, all 4 of these are basically, they just look like a plain teacup. And remember that design on them is so important on all of these, that intricate design that's happening. Not every teapot needs to have a super intricate design. Like this one has that kind of simple design on it. And this one, it's more about the shape than about the design itself on it. I think if you were to have like these 2 here, something that's even more intricate in shape, you don't need to have like super intricate design on it. And I don't think it has to be a super intricate design, but it needs something to make it more than just, a plain teapot. You can see all the ones you found here. Like I can see what kind of caught your eye. So that's what I would think about as you go forward here, is what can be on the teapot, whether or not it's a texture itself, something that's, the way the teapot is shaped, or it can be a design. Even a little design on this, makes all the difference. So you lost a couple points because I think you could push that a little bit farther. But I think you got a great start here. I think your shapes are nice. Just remember when you get to your perspective, remember this is just a series of forms. This is essentially kind of a sphere, more of a cylinder, it's basically between a cylinder and a sphere. So make sure you still start with that cube that your teapot will fit in, and then make sure you do your ellipses all super correct. That's what's going to really make and break your perspective drawing, is making sure you figure out every single ellipse, because it's essentially a cylinder, right? It's an ellipse on top, an ellipse on bottom, and it's just rounded on the sides as opposed to straight up and down. Just make sure it's even. These are all still a little tilted. Just really try for your finished drawing to make sure it looks even and doesn't look tilted or smushed. But otherwise, I think you're in a good spot here. Just try to push that design and make it really interesting and unique here. Okay, moving on. Christian, nothing from you yet. Evelyn. Let's see, Evelyn, you are behind. Did not get your Photoshop file, so you're going to lose points for that. Obviously didn't get your concept sketches, but your references look really great. Oh yeah, we got another book on here. Your references look great. This is exactly what I was talking about with the other people previously about finding interesting books. Like, you found some interesting books on here, so you are in a great spot there. And your studies are excellent. Let's see. Your studies are excellent. Like, you found really intricate designs and you spent a lot of time on this, really paying attention to the design of them. So excellent work on your studies here. I think these look really, really great. You just got to catch up, but otherwise you are in a good spot here. Let's see. Okay. And then Derek, I didn't get anything from you yet. Okay, that is it from you guys. Great job this week. I think a lot of you are on a good path. Make sure you make this really interesting and make it really unique. This is your chance to design something new. Make it worth it. Make it worth your time. Okay, great job, you guys. Remember, it's all due next week, so make sure you get it in on time. It's super, super important. This will affect your grade a lot. Okay, other than that, you guys are in a good spot. Good luck.